Folks, there are years, there are movies, and there's best movie years. We are trying to work out, was 1987 one of the best movie years? If not, wait for it, the best movie year. And the only way you could do that is by watching all the movies from 1987, from January's films through to December, and then talk about them on a podcast, which is what we're doing here. We've gone through the calendar. This week on the show, we're talking about Hot Pursuit. It's a 1987 film, and it is the film that had me asking the question 15 minutes into it, is there a Cliff Notes for movies where I could fake my way through watching this movie? Folks, we're going to delve into the world of Hot Pursuit in just a moment, but let's just kick things off. We're going to watch the trailer, and then Simon's going to give a synopsis as to what's going on, and we're going to throw ourselves into this conversation. Folks, this is Best Movie Year, and this is Hot Pursuit.
Dan and Lori had more than sex.
In 2 days, we'll be cruising to the Caribbean.
They had chemistry.
Are you ready for the moon, the stars, the surf?
I can't go. I flunked chemistry. I gotta stay and take a makeup.
You serious?
Catching her eye was one thing,
Girls that pretty don't like to be disappointed.
Oh, thank you, sir. I knew you were a good guy.
but catching her plane was another. Now, Dan wants to find her. In the worst way. And that's just the way he's doing it.
You in love with this girl? Mom!
The worst way.
Just sit down and shut up!
I think I saw Danny. He's on that boat.
That's my woman off the starboard bow. Come on!
We'll take him by storm.
Come on, we get to that cruise seat. Come on.
Can anybody, even this body, be worth this much travel?
I'm supposed to be in some tropical island paradise eating lavish spread, not on some rat-infested hellhole with some unscrupulous buccaneer rogue type.
This much trouble?
You getting the kid? Six, yeah.
No. Does anybody speak English in this dump?
Or this much ammo? John Cusack,
They call me Mr. Determined.
Robert Loggia,
I'll see you in hell, brother.
Hot Pursuit.
What else is gonna happen to me, huh?
What some guys won't do for love. This guy will.
Damn.
Dan Barrett, I can gather from your general tone with regard
Yes.
to that introduction that Hot Pursuit may not be amongst your favourite films of the aforementioned 1987 calendar year. In fact, it may be contain some of the least popular moments of cinema in your movie watching journey. Might I be truthful in saying that?
You may have read my text messages during the week.
Yes, I've left out a lot of the swear words, but that's essentially the gist of them. Hot Pursuit was released in the US on May 8, 1987, therefore qualifying it for this podcast. The plot, as the trailer suggests, let me just read through this very quickly. When Danny flunks his chemistry test, and so many good movies have started that way, he's not allowed to leave with his girlfriend's family on their trip to the Caribbean, #privileged much, but when his professor has a change of heart, Danny undertakes a journey to catch up with her that gets him involved with ganja-running locals, ganja meaning marijuana, a rugged old salty sea dog captain, played by the wonderful Robert Loggia, and machine gun-wielding drug types. This is Hot Pursuit. So, I'm very excited to be talking about this because, unlike a lot of the films in this podcast, which I adored back in 87, but on rewatching maybe don't adore quite so much, I actually came out of Hot Pursuit thinking, why did I never give this film a chance 40-odd years ago? I'm having a blast with this. It's quite the opposite to what I expected it would be.
You did share that sentiment with me during the week, and my immediate thought was, what ganja has Simon been smoking? Because this film is dreadful.
All right, let me just run through some of the stats on Hot Pursuit. What do you think its budget was? Let's kick off with that. Bearing in mind that it was, filmed on a couple of different continents, had a fairly big cast, had a few action scenes in there. Where do you think it came in at in $1987?
I mean, they didn't spend the money on the script, so I can work out that much. But let's say maybe $4 million.
It's a $7 million movie, which translates to a $20 million movie in 2025 dollars. Now, it's box office. You going to have a stab at that, my friend?
I can't imagine this film did very well, just on the basis that when I think, because this is like all the films in 1987 are a little bit before my time. Okay, so some films became like video staples in my house, and so post 87 through to like 1990, films like Secret of My Success and that sort of thing were just regularly played on video. But this wasn't one of those films, and when I hear people talk about the early career of John Cusack, it isn't Hot Pursuit they're talking about. It's what's the film he did before this one? It was
The Sure Thing.
Not The Sure Thing
is the film that kicked him off, yes. And I'm going to give you a real Cusackathon in a minute. But what's your box office estimate?
Better Off Dead is the one that I was thinking of.
Right, yes. Very much a video title, yes.
Yeah, so you've got that. So people never really talk about Hot Pursuit. So I just kind of figured that maybe it did okay, but I wouldn't imagine it did much more than just making its budget back.
It made $4.2 million at the US box office, or a rather meager $11.8 in 2025 dollars, which puts it
tracks
on the Box Office Mojo BMY chart, Best Movie Year chart, at 130th for the year's releases. So,
and we are not talking about 100 movies on this podcast.
No, I was just thinking the same thing. It actually maybe doesn't disqualify it for this podcast. The nearest Best Movie Year title is Evil Dead 2, which came in at 115. Now, it's not our lowest that we've done. Both, The All-Nighter, The Kindred, and The Stepfather all took less than Hot Pursuit at the box office. So, but we're definitely in the dog days of the box office realm as it speaks.
I can confirm,
yes,
I like this one a lot more than, sorry, I just even forgot the name.
The Kindred,
which is easily the lowest point of 1987 so far.
I'm assuming by your general disdain and disinterest in this film that you only saw it for the first time, like 4 hours ago?
Like yesterday. But yeah.
Well, now this is one that did skim by me at the cinemas. I did not see this at the movies. It was a VHS one-off viewing for me, because I have a very clear memory of just not liking it that much. And I have to start off here.
I have a clear memory of that as well.
No. Now, John Cusack was, and remains to this day, my guy. He was my favourite star of the 80s. The Sure Thing that you mentioned, which was...
Well, I didn't. You mentioned it.
But... Rob Reiner's directorial debut is one of the great sort of screwball road comedies, not just of the 80s. It is widely regarded as... sort of hearkening back to what happened one night, Clark Gable sort of screwy kind of road movie. Him and Daphne Zuniga together are just wonderful. It is almost the perfect script. So The Sure Thing loomed large over everything he did after that. But then he did a trio of films, and we've mentioned them already, that were kind of lumped together: Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer. Two films which I do remember as being quite terrible. And I'm going to rewatch them now thinking maybe they weren't. But also lumped into that is Hot Pursuit. Now, those two movies were very much wacky, zany, tacky sort of 80s teen comedies, where Hot Pursuit, to me, is far more in the mould of something like Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner's Romancing the Stone, where they're caught in this sort of... different landscape, different country, and they have to try and escape. And yes, he's always trying to get to her, but in doing that gets all caught up in evil doings in the jungle, and the action scenes take over. Because you rightly point out, or maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was someone I read somewhere, that the back end of this film doesn't have any comedy. It's all machine gun fire and explosions.
The first half of this movie doesn't have any comedy either.
I walked right into that. God damn it. But with Cusack's charm, Wendy Gazelle as Laurie, who I thought was really good, and she remained a jobbing actor up until sort of 2022, I think her last credit was. For me, this worked on both fronts. It had some funny moments, clearly some outdated moments. We can't keep going over that as part of this podcast because, yes, it's 35 or 37 years old now, whatever it is. but some good action. So I'm going to fight to the death for Hot Pursuit. I think this was misunderstood upon release and deserves reassessment now.
I don't think it does deserve a reassessment. I've watched it. I've assessed. It is not a very good movie. Look, part of the problem is that so much of the film just feels like poorly thought through and just hasn't really gone through just all the... I don't know, there were enough script revisions. Like, it just kind of feels like it was a first draft effort that's been thrown up on the screen. Okay, you've got a filmmaker in Steven Lisberger who... His main credit is Tron.
Tough career. And then he had a tough career.
Well, look, his main credit is Tron, and then when you look at the other films in his filmography, there's also, gosh, let's go through the depth of it all. There's Tron, there's Tron Legacy, and Tron Ares.
All right. So yes, he's getting writing credit on the two Tron, on the Tron remakes. He made Tron died a terrible death, and he was largely blacklisted in Hollywood because everyone thought he was the kiss of death because they all thought Tron was a sure thing. So he made Hot Pursuit, also didn't do much business at the box office. Then he made a movie called Slipstream, which is a Mark Hamill, Bob Peck sort of sci-fi vision that takes place on an Earth-like planet. Very expensive, barely released. So yeah, he had a tough trot as a director.
Yeah, and that's his entire filmography. Oh, and there was also Animal Olympics, which was like an animated TV movie.
Tron, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
but look, tough. Here's the thing. I've always wanted to see Slipstream, and after seeing this movie, I'm not sure I'm going to bother now.
See, Slipstream is another one I sought out and kind of really dig as well. It was an ambitious project. I'm surprised they gave him that sort of money after the 1-2 box office death of Tron and Hot Pursuit, but they did, and people are still paying it off. So that's a shame. But I think he's a good director. I think he handled the scenes in this. I don't
think he is a good director, though. So part of the problem is that I don't think that he's getting very good performances out of pretty much anyone in this one. John Cusack, like, he's fine. I think John Cusack is always just such an amiable screen presence. It's hard to be disappointed by seeing John Cusack on screen.
True.
Okay, but where John Cusack excels on screen is that John Cusack is like an open wound anytime that you watch him. So you're looking at that emotion as through his puppy dog face.
He's hangdog
in all the best of his movies. Yeah. I mean, even something which is... Sorry, this is the first thing that's coming to mind right now. Like Con Air or that film Identity where, these are more sort of dramatic sort of action parts. Sure. Like, even then, like, there's still a heavy sort of emotional sort of emo element to him as a performer.
I agree.
So you've got that. But here he's not really given sort of enough opportunities to be at his maximum sort of emo-ness. But, like, he's fine. Okay, but then you look at all these supporting characters who just get the opportunity to do nothing on screen. Starting with, say, Ben Stiller, who he's a bit smarmy in this one, but
in his film debut, maybe 18, I would say, 18 or 19.
Yeah, and I presume he got the gig because Jerry Stiller was probably already signed to it, and like one thing led to another. I'm sure that's not a coincidence.
Jerry Stiller as a bad guy.
Yeah.
Which don't expect... Or Ben Stiller is a bad guy, I guess you could say. It's been a while since... But he has an edginess. He has those eyebrows. And
No, but he's supposed to be edgy, but he just seems like a smarmy, like, sales bag douchebag. Like, he doesn't...
Salesman douchebag.
Like, there's just kind of...
when you say that, aren't you?
A little bit. Yeah. But, like, there's just kind of nothing to him. Like, he doesn't really feel like he's actually menacing at all. And so when you find out that he's really the henchman for his father, played by one Jerry Stiller, his actual father... Okay, like, Jerry Stiller's never going to be a menacing presence on screen. Okay, so you need to counter that by having his son who could maybe sort of fulfill that role, but neither of them really seem like they're all that much of a concern.
Oh, I thought he had a mean streak. I actually thought in this I'd like to see Ben Stiller do more villain, like legitimate villain roles. I thought he was really good in the overacty to a fault, but not without his convincing ugly moments. And I will pull you up because I think Robert Loggia... Now,
we'll get to him. Sorry, I just want to run through a few people here. Yep. So you've got the Stillers. You've got Wendy Gazelle, who plays the girlfriend, Laurie Cronenberg. Mm-hmm. When she comes in, there's this opening scene where she comes through the window and John Cusack, playing Dan Bartlett, no relation. He's supposed to be like studying for this exam, and you're watching it, and the way that it should be playing is she should be so tempting in that she's so adorable and so sassy and just spunky that you have to go with her. But the tension is that he's got this exam, which everything's resting on this exam for him. Okay, so it's like, no, I can't do it. But, like, essentially, when she comes in, like, she's not so compelling that you completely are on the idea that he should just throw it all in to go out with her. Instead, you're just kind of looking at it going, well, no, you're just a bit of a blocker. Like, he needs to get this exam done. Like, this is kind of just a bit
so
rude
that
and
he
awful.
can come away to the Caribbean with her the next morning. I did think the same thing. I'm not gonna fault you there.
I just don't think she's enough of an offer at that point. And that's her best scene.
What are you suggesting? Are you suggesting she should use her feminine wiles?
Well, that's the whole thing with that scene. Like, she's coming in to use her feminine wiles to get the guy that she's dating to come out with her and abandon his studies.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So that was a mistake on her part, because without him passing this exam, which she assured him he would, because he's been very good all year, and then because she did that and they fought and he overslept, he got a 58 and failed, and not a 60 that he could have got and would have happily gone on and ended this film in about 9 minutes. Same thing that would have happened if anyone had mobile phones back then. All he had to do was...
Yeah, but what you're speaking to is that she's really just a plot device. She doesn't really actually have any sort of character or charm as a character. So you got John Cusack, who's supposed to be this open wound actor, suddenly is just confronted with something which isn't really that interesting. So when you're watching him on screen, it's like, well, I understand why... You know, this film isn't really working because John Cusack isn't really got anything to, like, you know, open that wound for. Like, it's completely counter to every other time you've seen him on screen opposite, like, any love interest.
Yeah,
it's
to
awkward.
a certain extent, I don't disagree. And yes, it is a little bit awkward. It also puts us on side with him, though, because he's got to pass that exam to get away with this. So he's a man of integrity. He knows that he's got to do well in the exam so that he can ultimately go with her.
But I'm always going to be on side with him because, one, it's John Cusack, and two, he's the hero of the movie. Like, it's just, it doesn't really work. And then you got John Loggia in his, I think, 10th film of
Robert
1987.
Loggia. Robert Loggia.
What did I say, David Loggia?
You said John Loggia. You
John
got the whole
Loggia.
Loggia clan. Yeah, exactly. Well, he is the everywhere man of the 80s.
There was John Loggia, there's David Loggia, there's Beppy.
Laurie
Remember
Loggia.
Beppy?
Yeah, I love Beppy Loggia. Zeppo and Harpo.
Yeah. So anyway, you got Robert Loggia in his 10th movie of 1987 by this point.
And our second here on the podcast.
Yeah, he was in Over the Top, the Sylvester Stallone vehicle.
Yep, the other good arm wrestling movie, yep.
Yeah, but, like, I just don't think he's really given that much here. Like, I just really...
I think the scenes between him
It's
and
a lot of
Cusack
hat
on the
acting.
boat, it's big Loggia acting, which is what he does. Look at Scarface, look at Prizzi's Honor, look at Big opposite Tom Hanks. He matches Hanks, you know, in a very Hankian way in that one. And in this one, there's a scene on the boat where Loggia is losing it with John Cusack's character, Daniel Barrett, and he's...
Excuse me, Bartlett.
I'm going to have your name changed by the end of this podcast, I promise. And Cusack seemed legitimately scared by Loggia's big over-the-top screaming thing. So I thought they were good together. I had no problem with that.
Part of the issue is that you're watching the film as well. So Dan Bartlett, John Cusack, arrives on the island, gets mixed up with the ganja-smoking trio who get their car stuck.
Man belong to the woman, but the woman, she don't belong to the man. That song, that should have been the soundtrack. That would have gone top 10. That's what the...
Oh, I want to get to the soundtrack in a moment as well. But
okay, good.
So he meets up with these three, and so they kind of propel him on his journey. And I kind of thought from that point it was going to be a little bit like a quest movie where John Cusack is just bumping into like groups of people that will help him on his journey to be able to meet his girlfriend. Because you get those three at the beginning, and it kind of feels like it's setting up that template. But then that's the last of that. You just got this extended sequence for what felt like about 95 minutes of him on the boat with Loggia. Like, it just went on so long and delivered nothing.
There was that sequence, and I agree that it was hot, but it wasn't necessarily a pursuit. So only half the title was utilised in that sequence where they're out on the boat and they're becalmed and they're trying to find... See, now, if she'd have just picked up the binoculars and used them to see the boat that was behind... She clearly would have seen that was John Cusack, and once again, the film would have been over in maybe 50 minutes rather than the 96 that it ran to.
I also never felt the heat. I mean,
Really?
I never felt the heat.
Markham as
I
the
never
dad,
felt the heat. Sorry, I never felt the heat with Wendy Gazelle, but also the actual temperature of the Caribbean. I never felt that as well.
No. I thought there's one scene where the father, played by Monty Markham, who is an actor who was everywhere back through the 70s and 80s.
Can we talk about Monty Markham for a moment?
Momentarily, but he's a big sweater. He's, for some reason, the wardrobe department put him in a dark blue shirt when he was going to get on the boat to go out to sea, and boy, was he sweating up a storm. They would have removed all that with CGI not long after this film came out, but he is revealed to be quite the sweater.
I'm going to give you my 3 Monty Markham performances that people need to pay attention to.
Let's go.
Number 1, played Blanche's brother in The Golden Girls across 2 episodes.
Yeah. Well remembered for that.
Gay man marries his partner in I think season 6 episode of Golden Girls.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Important. Number 2, little TV show called Baywatch. He was there right at the beginning of Baywatch when the show was actually still about life-saving. Mm-hmm. And he was like a senior lifeguard for like 2 seasons on that show.
Sure was, and he had the bod for it. Absolutely, he did, yeah. Monty
Incredible.
Markham.
Third role, he was Perry Mason. They did a revival Perry Mason show in the mid-70s called The New Perry Mason.
And he was the new Perry.
He was the new Perry Mason.
I did not know of that. Like I say, he's been a character actor forever.
I've seen him in so many things over the years.
I don't even know if he's still with us. I hope he is. God bless him. But
good question.
He was fairly objectionable in this, actually. At one point, he said, "Oh, I'm going to get you institutionalized." He threatened his daughter with that. He was very mean when it was revealed that Dan Barrett, played by John Cusack, had failed his chemistry exam. You sounded like a little girl when you did that.
He was Dan Bartlett.
When he failed his chemistry exam at Big Font College, did you notice in the college where it had science just written on the building? Clearly the art department had just sort of written that on a big bit of cardboard and stuck it over something else on there. And the poor professor at the start there, what a hammy bit of acting. And why he decided... So I just want to be clear. He saw the photo of John Cusack's girlfriend and saw that Bartlett was upset about not making the cruise, and then decided just to bump up his mark by 2 points so he'd get the 60 and he could go and get on the plane. Is that right?
Yeah, spot on.
That's very odd. All right. Okay, so there we are. What else have you got to add about this terrific film?
But yeah, so I think what I was trying to get to earlier was that if we saw that they were going like from sort of, elements of quest to quest to quest, like there would have been something to this movie, because at least there'd be more sort of guest stars along the way, and we can kind of...
It's not the Love Boat. What are you talking about?
That'd be great. I just want a movie which is exciting and new.
You've given me the coughs. I do apologise. Did we establish whether Monty Markham is still with us?
He's still alive. He's 89 years old, which means we probably could have gotten him in on this podcast.
I'm going to give him a call. I'm sure I've got his number somewhere in my Rolodex.
All right.
Do you have a most memorable scene from this Hot Pursuit film?
Look, I wasn't enjoying it at the time, but certainly in light of everything that came afterwards, it turned out to be a bit of a highlight, which was him with the 3 ganja-smoking locals, with the car trapped in the water feature.
The big water crash.
Yeah, trying to get it out. And then them getting it out the next morning with help of a travelling bus going past, and, managing to get to the resort before Dan Bartlett was able to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kind of like that. Can we just talk about that cast? The 3 actors?
Keith David there amongst them.
A very young Keith David.
Post The Thing.
I was looking at him going, that's Keith David. Anyway, I was very excited by that, because Keith David's just one of those character actors you see in everything. But did you notice Paul Bates in there?
No. Who's Paul Bates?
Paul Bates, there's only one other movie you might know Paul Bates from, and I say that not knowing much about Paul Bates. Okay. There could well be another film that Paul Bates is very well known for, but he is the heavy-set member of the entourage in Coming to America.
No.
Yeah, you know the guy that I mean, right?
I do, yeah. I know Coming to America very well. Really? He was one of the African bodyguards?
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, he's put on a bit by that stage, hasn't he? That was only like a year or so after this one, 88 or 89.
Was it even like an 87 film, maybe?
Oh.
No, what was coming to America?
On the magic list if it was.
That's true.
Yeah. 1988.
No,
okay. All right. And who was the lady? The very attractive lady in the car?
No idea.
Oh, okay. They were good scenes. I enjoyed those scenes, when he convinced them. Unlike Monty Markham, and we're back to him, who used the phrase "those people," which didn't travel well into the 2025 ears of one Simon Foster, but he was a real dick in this film. My most memorable scene was, I guess, the plane freak out when he goes, "I want my pina colada," and the plane decides to land away from where he needs it to land, and he has a bit of a plane flip out.
But wasn't it just fundamentally stupid? Who's going to get on a plane thinking that there's going to be a pina colada service?
Well, Dan Barrett, apparently. Dan Bartlett, of course. The MVP for me here, obviously John Cusack, just because he can carry anything. But I think the film takes on a little bit of an extra element for me when Loggia gets involved. So the scenes between Cusack and Loggia represent as good as this film got.
Yeah, so look, you've sent me on a bit of a wild goose chase just then in terms of trying to find out who that third actor was as part of that group.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it's an actress named Ursuline Bryant. Now, she has a role in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation called Conspiracy. It's a very early series episode, which is kind of like one of the first real standout episodes, They discover there's a conspiracy that's kind of infected, Starfleet, and but apparently she's in that episode, which I was kind of enthused by. Also, apparently she plays a prostitute in a Golden Girls episode called Ladies of the Evening, which I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that's the episode where the Golden Girls find themselves arrested and are in a prison cell. And I'm assuming that she might be one of the prostitutes in the cell with them, possibly. But I'm just kind of guessing on that one.
Your ability to get a reference to the Golden Girls into any of the podcasts we do never ceases to
I think it's the first time I've done it for this podcast, but I've often thought about it.
Oh, dear. All right, so any final thoughts, plus looking ahead, as I've got written here on my running sheet, does it fit within the paradigm of the nature of this podcast? 100 films that argue that 1987 is the best movie year ever. Go.
Not at all. So with the films that I haven't enjoyed, okay, so the one that always comes to mind is Outrageous Fortune, which is a film that I'd sat down hoping that I was just wrong as a young kid, and that actually was kind of quietly actually quite a fun movie, but it wasn't.
No.
At least watching something like that, I could at least pick out one or two scenes that were good performances or kind of funny in some way or did something. But I just can't do that with this movie. There's just nothing in this film at all which worked for me.
I have trouble arguing in that it is the sort of film that would make any sort of pro-debate that 1987 was the best movie year ever. I will say that, would I recommend it to watch it to anyone? I would say yes, because it's been so misunderstood and misrepresented over the years.
What is there to misunderstand about this movie?
Because it's pitched in the poster, it's pitched on the VHS cover back in the day. Certainly the trailer pictures it as a kind of wacky teen romp.
I did think it was going to be a wacky teen romp, to be fair.
I know, and it isn't. It's definitely more your action/comedy, helmed by a young, fronted by a young John Cusack doing a pretty good role in the job. So I would say, yes, watch this film, go in with an open mind, and your top 10 films ever, this could easily dislodge a Lawrence of Arabia or a Third Man. I might have gone too far there. I apologise for that.
Look, I've never really quite thought about... gosh, I'm just trying to even think of one of the characters in this film.
Dan Barrett.
Yeah, Dan Bartlett in this movie really is like the 1987 equivalent of Harry Lime.
Exactly, yes. Exactly right. There's a reference, kids. Google it. Look at the films we've got coming up on the weeks ahead on Best Movie Year podcast. We never did establish if we could find River's Edge anywhere, which I'm desperate to find because it's a great, great film.
Sorry, Simon. Production meeting conversation for you. Yes, I have a copy for you.
Beautiful. Good to hear. The Gate, which is a little horror film that may sort of challenge the Kindred.
The Gate I'm excited by, and only because The Gate is a title that I used to always see it on the shelf in the horror section.
Yeah. Well, and I remember the video box had like a shiny cover. They'd used a kind of, what's that word? Not tinsel, but it had sort of a reflective quality to it.
Yeah,
they did some good work back in the 80s.
And so it's been long in my mind of something which I'd kind of like to see. I know it's not going to be good, but I'm excited about seeing it.
Unlike Ishtar, which will be the film after that, which I am so excited about. As I referenced previously, it is screening at the Sydney Film Festival this year as part of an Elaine May retrospective. I cannot wait to see Ishtar on the big screen, which is something I've never seen on the big screen.
You really have to start learning about how just because we record a podcast before this one doesn't mean you can carry conversations over from one to the other.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like the multiverse all of a sudden.
It is.
So I'm looking forward to Ishtar. And then we get into some like really big crazy stuff. Then you're into the Beverly Hills Cops 2, and the Untouchables is looming in our front window.
Look, and don't forget Ernest Goes to Camp. But folks, you can only enjoy those if you like and subscribe to this newsletter, this podcast newsletter. We've got a newsletter. It's bestmovieyear.com.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Sign up.
I do good work.
Yeah, sure. So that newsletter, you can sign up to it and you can get a prize when there's new episodes of this that have landed on the YouTube or in your various podcast feeds. You can, of course, find us as a podcast everywhere you want. The way to consume this one, though, is the video on YouTube or Spotify video. There is video content that you find throughout the program.
There is, yes, we do. When I say we, I mean you, and I take partially credit for it. You drop in a lot of the work, a lot of the video imagery as part of those video, and fans of the video, the YouTube channel will know exactly what I'm talking about. Unlike
Indeed.
Me, I've got no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway.
Simon, where else can people find you? Let's give a quick plug.
Over on the Substack, you can find my Screen Space newsletter, which is actually moving along in leaps and bounds. I'm signing up a lot of new people every week, which is very exciting. We have some big news to mention about my Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned to that.
Folks, and people can find me at alwaysbewatching.com. There's a newsletter, sign up to it. It's free. It tells you about TV and streaming stuff. Anyway, folks, we'll be back next week as we take a look at the all-time classic that is River's Edge, a film I've not seen before, but I cannot wait. Folks, we'll see you then.